Ladies and gentlemen of the Cover Killer Nation, it's once again time for a 2011 album review, and this one is exceptionally critical. This is one that really needs to turn the tides in the way in which this year has been going whenever it comes to big name releases. That's right, it's finally time. It's time for us to review 13 by Megadeth, the long-awaited album by the boys, Dave Mustaine. You know the names, you know them well, you know the classic material. I've only been doing a discography. 13, though, can be an unlucky number. This is a tragic number of the unfortunate. This is one where Friday the 13th, not only being a successful horror movie franchise, is also the day in which evil and bad luck awaits those who are superstitious enough to buy into it. Now, I myself have had good luck with it, but that's because I don't believe in superstition. As Dave would say, I ain't superstitious. Now, 13 is an album that has come after the highly successful Endgame, which I reviewed on the old account 2 years ago, and I actually enjoyed. And I'm going to be redoing the review, obviously, considering that review's long gone, and I'm in the middle of a discography. Well, at this point, the end of the discography. So what about 13? What does 13 have to offer us? It has 13 tracks. Gee, I wonder if that has anything to do with the 13 candles that are on the cover. Or maybe that's just a numerical coincidence. At any rate, this is a 13-track album. It's going to clock in at close to an hour long. And it's got a lot of great guitar work. I mean, this is an album where if it's the first thing I'm saying, then you know it's good. And Megadeth has always been well known for this. And their dual-layer attack is something that's made them famous now for the entire breadth of their career, really. And especially during the classic eras of the Marty Friedman era, which started with Rust in Peace and moved on. It was even... you even saw it a lot in the early era, and you've seen it a lot in the revitalization period. That has started with albums such as The World Needs a Hero, but more notably on The System Has Failed. These tracks really vary in tempo, but for the most part they stay on the speedy side. They stay with that more aggressive, that thrash metal side. It's almost like they're channeling a little bit of the 80s, but it's not so much that they're always channeling Megadeth from the 1980s. This is an album that actually has a nice intermingling mix of what you would consider to be Megadeth from the classic era or the 1980s, but also mainstreaming, borderlining a little bit on a little bit of what you would consider maybe classic rock, so to speak. There's a little bit of like an Alice Cooper's type vibe in here, or maybe even like a Saxon type thing going on, where the topics are not necessarily all going to be what you have been very traditionally used to hearing from Dave Mustaine over the past couple of albums, where he's been extremely political, extremely harsh on the government and things like that. That's still present, don't get me wrong, but it's not something that is being assaulted on a track-by-track basis. So there's a little bit of variety in there. And you're going to see songs such as Wrecker, which is talking about a home wrecker, where he's kind of going back to that whole idea of relationships, something that was explored a lot on The World Needs a Hero, on songs such as 1,000 Times Goodbye. And you're also seeing him talking about Fastlane, which is talking about cars and talking about driving, which is something that I've not seen present on a Megadeth disc since 502 from back in the 1980s. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I probably am. Motorcycle. I was wrong. However, the virtuosity on this album is definitely the focal point. The boys definitely went into the studio extremely focused. And they said that there was already a lot of strange things that happened, so the number 13 and the name 13 for the album is definitely significant for what the sessions were like, as well as maintaining the whole superstitious guise to it. However, at the same time, they also felt that this was some of their strongest material to date, if not the strongest in their recent run here, ever since Dave re-envisioned the band back in 2004. And you know what? This is actually a Dave Mustaineism that I have to agree with, mainly because this is an album that is filled with material that you're not going to want to turn off. This is an album that you're going to listen to from front to back, and it's something that happens ceremoniously with ease without the need to feel like you need to skip around. And that is the mark of a very well written and very well executed release by a band that has been doing this forever. So it's something that you would think that bands would know how to do by now. But a lot of bands don't. A lot of bands truly don't. They think that they can just go into the studio willy-nilly with a couple of ideas here, a couple of ideas there, and let the rest just grow organically, and it's just going to magically flow together because they've been together for, the past 705 years. No, it's not the way it works out. It has to be something that's crafted very skillfully, very meticulously, with a lot of care, with a lot of precision, and that's something that Megadeth was able to do with 13. It's something that makes it a very, very enjoyable listen. They also rework a couple of old songs that they had kind of planned for other releases that you would hear in some of the bonus editions of the old albums that were remastered a couple of years ago by Dave Mustaine. Tracks such as New World Order and Millennium of the Blind are two that really come to mind. And these are almost like re-envisionings, reawakenings of these tracks where they were finally given their nice, their nice polish, their upbringing. Everything was allowed to develop. They were no longer just rough demos. They were made into full songs, which they were before, but at the same time, they did undergo a little bit of a cosmetic change. And I like the reworking of Millennium of the Blind a lot. I think this is a really nice vision for this particular song that Dave Mustaine had before, but was able to really revitalize here in 2011. I also am a very big fan of Black Swan. Black Swan has a really addicting introduction, very nice second guitar piece in the background. I think that the two of them overlaid against one another really have a nice flow to it. Not to mention also have a very nice idea that they're able to launch into the actual lyrics and the chorus of the track, so there was a lot of room for musical development. They really did a lot with that song, and I really enjoyed it. Now, the singles are a little bit hit or miss. Now, Public Enemy #1, whenever you hear it, the studio version as opposed to the live version just sounds awesome. I mean, the live version was good, but at the same time, it was kind of missing something, and it was really missing the dynamic depth that you really hear from Megadeth in the studio anymore, that nice polish and polished production value that you really get from Death releases here in the 2000s. Never Dead is not bad, but at the same time, it also is a track that seems a little bit underdeveloped, and it's just a track that's not quite as good as many of the others on the disc. In fact, a lot of the other songs on the disc that you didn't get a preview of online or anything like that are very, very solid offerings. Almost as though Dave was saying, well, listen, if you guys are going to like these songs, you're going to love the rest of this record. And that's essentially what the selling point for this record is. If you enjoyed even one of the songs that they've released as a single, then 13 is going to be an album that's going to be right up your alley. It's going to polish your thrash stick, and it's going to make you happy as balls to be a thrash metal fan, or just a Megadeth fan in general. I have to say that finally, I mean, we've had a couple in there, but finally, we have a big, huge, like, spotlight name release in a band such as Megadeth that has not been a masterpiece. It's been a masterpiece. This is a thrasherpiece, a very strong album, something that thrash metal has a lot to be thankful for and a lot to be very proud of right now. And this is an album that I highly recommend that all of you guys check out. November the 1st, 2011. 11-1-11, that's a lot of ones. Easy to remember. You don't have to remember any other ridiculous digits. Just remember one. Cover Killer Nation saying, I'm excited as shit that this album was as good as it was. I'm also excited as shit that I don't have to sit here in front of this camera and complain about a release from one of my favorite artists. So thank you very much, Dave and the boys, and I will see all of you guys, Cover Killer Nation, the next time.